A lot of times people wonder, well, why do we have those across the state join us? And it's because we are not bound by our boundaries. We like to travel, and we are all traveling so much more throughout the pandemic, staying right here in our neighborhoods because we don't feel comfortable getting on a plane, and for a lot of people. And so we're staying right here in the state of Michigan, and one of my favorite cities on the western part of the state, of course, is Grand Rapids, and we are lucky to have with us today the mayor of Grand Rapids, Rosalyn Bliss. Thank you so much for being with us. We so appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be joining you today.
So this is the first time that we're speaking with you on the show. So can I ask, how are things going in Grand Rapids? I will say I missed the big beer festival. Usually it's in the winter time, and that didn't happen this year.
Yeah, sadly, a lot of our typical events throughout the year, they haven't happened this past year. But with that being said, we just came off of the world of winter. So over the last 3 months, we've made a really intentional effort to create events and spaces outside to draw people downtown. So we brought in some pretty significant art installations and had projectors and music and lots of fun things downtown, ice sculptures and ice skating. So over the past few months, downtown has actually been really quite busy, even though our restaurants have been limited in their space. If you come to Grand Rapids, you'll see that we've transformed our streets and our parks and parking lots into outside eating areas with heaters and sometimes little huts that people can go in if they don't want to be outside. So the downtown looks quite different today than it did a year ago.
It is really a great downtown. And for your size city, too, I think Grand Rapids pre-pandemic has gotten it right. So post-pandemic, you've also created such a walkable community. So what do you think some of the things that you put in place this past winter? Because we do know Grand Rapids, not the warmest place to go and to visit. So when it's sub-zero, how do you create that space to get people to stay? I know you mentioned the huts. Do you think that's going to continue into next year?
Well, that is our hope. So one thing after the pandemic hit, myself and a lot of our partners in the community came together really quickly, actually, and started to think about what do we need to do to support our businesses, especially those first few months through the pandemic, last summer, and then going into the winter season. And so we had been planning not just for how do we take advantage of social zones and social districts. We were one of the many cities that advocated for the state to allow us to do that, and we're very hopeful that that legislation will stay permanent. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to continue these social zones and social districts, long after the pandemic. But then we just started working really closely with our different businesses and identifying what their needs were. How do we support them? Who had access to outside space that they could grow into? And then through our DDA, we allocated just under $1 million to help support some of those efforts. So through our Downtown Development Authority, they've been very helpful in purchasing the tables and the chairs and the heaters and the propane and the different huts or spaces for businesses to use. And that has been I would say that has been a huge support to a lot of our small businesses.
Yeah, people don't realize while it's been great for some of these businesses to get the heaters, propane is so expensive. So I know a lot of the efforts are being made to help them support that cost as well. I will say what I love are those garden sheds, like the glass garden sheds. I don't know if they have that in Grand Rapids, but I'm like, I want one of those for my backyard now.
We've seen so much creativity, from the garden sheds to the igloos to large tents that have been put up to over at the Mitten, they have outside fire pits, kind of created this outside beer garden. So it really has been fun to watch the different ideas and creativity come from this really challenging time. It doesn't make it easier. I mean, I heard Dave a little bit in the prior interview. And the reality is 25% capacity or even 50% capacity, it just doesn't make the numbers work for a lot of these restaurants and bars. As he said, our venues are all still closed down largely. Our hotels are, running at 25, 30% capacity. So there's still a lot of challenge and struggle that so many business owners are experiencing in our city and cities across our state.
But are you seeing more people travel to your region and your city because of the pandemic? Maybe that would have gone to other states or Florida, but now they're staying closer to home?
We are. So we have seen that. We actually do, for the downtown area anyway, we capture pedestrian counts, and we're looking at the data just like many other cities. So we have seen some of that kind of regional tourism. It still doesn't compete with, having a convention that brings in 2 or 3 or 4,000 people to your city. But it has buffered us a little bit. And then I would say we are seeing people intentionally just want to get out and come downtown. And we had on our if you're familiar with our city, on North Monroe, we took a large park and we brought in an art installation which was interactive teeter totters, and it was filled with families and individuals. We had music playing, we had people could grab something to drink and spend time outside with their family, and it was really quite busy. So that's been nice too.
I feel like the western part of the state, you're not in Michigan any longer. We're so used to Detroit being our big city, right? We have Detroit and the suburbs, but when you go to the western part of the state, it's so different. Plus, you keep in mind, so many people in Grand Rapids in that area, they associate with Chicago because Chicago is fairly close to you as well. But with that, with people coming, if I'm coming to Grand Rapids or to your region, I've never been there before. I live in the state of Michigan. What are the top 3 things I should see?
Oh goodness. Well, is it pandemic or post-pandemic?
Right. Let's do 2.
Okay, all right. Okay. So there are so many things to say. It's hard for me to nail down one, but I'll say top 3. If you haven't been to Frederick Meyer Garden Sculpture Park, it's absolutely stunning. So right now they have an exhibit called Butterflies in Bloom, and you go into their botanical gardens, and there are thousands and thousands of butterflies all over. So I actually just took my niece and nephew on Saturday, and it is just a magical experience, but it's warm, you can smell all the flowers. It's just a really wonderful experience. And then the sculptures are amazing. There's a beautiful, huge Japanese garden that was added a couple years ago. It's just one of the most peaceful, beautiful spaces to be. So I would say you have to see Frederick Meyer Garden Sculpture Park if you haven't done that. Downtown, we have incredible public art from, Le Grand Vitesse, created by Alexander Calder, to our Love statue, to the Ecliptic, which was created by Maya Lin. So I would encourage people to take a walk and look at our public art. We've added about 15 beautiful murals over the past year, many of them highlighting historic people from our community. And so I would encourage you to just walk around and take a look at all of the public art. And then, of course, you have to visit one of our breweries. So, if you haven't been to Founders, you really need to go to Founders. But with that said, we have so many other locally owned brewers that make, if you're a beer lover, make fantastic beer, from City Built to the Mitten, the list goes on and on.
And really, Grand Rapids has put the state of Michigan on the map for the craft beer industry. You've been such a leader there in the city of Grand Rapids and that arena of our economy. Mayor Bliss with us here on the MegaCast. She is the mayor for the city of Grand Rapids. How is your budget looking right now?
Well, it's looking better with the federal stimulus package. So a lot of people don't know the nuances of city government. So there are some cities like ours. We are largely an income tax city. So the vast majority of our general fund is income taxes. So there's 24 cities in the state of Michigan relying on income tax as a part of their revenue. Most other cities are property tax. So that's where they get the vast majority of their revenue. For us income tax cities, when individuals were told to go home and work from home, most, I'm here in my office, and most of the buildings around me became virtually empty. Mm-hmm. And so all those individuals who are non-residents, who used to pay a portion of their income tax to our city, they all didn't work in the city for a year. So we are projecting about a $22 million a year hit from income tax losses. So 6 weeks ago, I was having a meeting with our city manager and my colleagues on the city commission, and we were talking about potential budget cuts. But now with the federal relief package, we'll use a portion of those dollars to fill our budget holes, as well as to address some of the real significant needs we have around housing, homelessness, affordable housing.
So with that too, how is your city doing on vaccinations? Is it open to everyone right now, or are you still limiting?
Yeah, so it's not open to everyone, only because our wait list is so significant. So we turned our convention center into a vaccine clinic, and we are vaccinating tens of thousands of people every single week at our primary vaccine clinic. At full capacity, that facility will be able to give 20 to 30,000 vaccines a day. So we're hopeful that as soon as we get the number of vaccines, they will go into people's arms as quickly as possible. Once we get through the wait list, then we'll start opening it up. And now with the governor's recent announcement about April 5th, that it'll be eligible, everyone over 16 will be eligible. We think we'll be able to meet that need pretty quickly. So we've done here in our county, countywide, we have about 670,000 people. And as of the end of last week, we had reached almost 200,000 individuals.
Rosalyn Bliss with us here on the MegaCast. She is the mayor for the city of Grand Rapids. Mayor, just about 15 seconds with you here on the MegaCast. Before we say goodbye, anything you want to share with people about your city?
I would say if you haven't come to Grand Rapids, it's worth a trip. So if you're looking to stay close to home, get in your car and come on over. We have great hotels, restaurants, breweries, and a lot of great attractions. And our zoo opens on March 27th.
Great things to visit. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.